They said the house wasn't mine, that I was just his wife, not a real Henderson. 48 hours after Richard's funeral, they stood in my living room with a lawyer and a locksmith. Isabel smiled like it was her wedding day. "You have 10 days, she said. I didn't scream, I didn't cry. I brewed tea, opened my laptop, and typed the date he proposed. Our secret. 1 password down, 2 to go. They thought he left me nothing. But Richard was never careless. He knew who they were, and he knew exactly who I'd become the moment he was gone. The morning sun spilled over the deck like liquid gold, brushing across the sleek glass walls of our home. Richard called it the edge of nowhere, our sanctuary at the edge of San Francisco's chaos, where silence wrapped around you like silk. Every detail in that house bore his fingerprints. The voice-activated climate system, the imported walnut floors, even the herb garden he insisted would keep me grounded, despite our cloud-level lifestyle. I loved it all. I loved him. And I believed, foolishly, that love and design were enough to hold things together. The 7th anniversary of our wedding was quiet by choice. Richard hated noise, and I had come to adore the intimacy of silence. He gifted me a necklace, simple, rose gold, with a small embedded NFC chip, engraved underneath in code only he and I understood. "Just us two," it read, pulsing when I held it close to my phone. A custom encryption signature, he told me. "One day, this'll be more than a keepsake." That night, after wine and music and kisses under linen sheets, I woke up alone in bed. His side was cold. At first, I thought he'd gone downstairs to get water, but the light in the hallway stayed off. The air was still. I called his name once, twice, then again, louder, unsure why my heart had begun to race. I found him collapsed beside the server rack in his study. No breath, no pulse. The paramedics were calm, almost indifferent. "Massive coronary, instant," one of them whispered, like Richard was just another data point. The house dimmed after that. No more gold spilling into the halls, only gray. Friends came and went like wind. They said kind things and left food I couldn't eat. Isabel, his younger sister, stayed the longest. Always in black, always watching me with eyes too dry for mourning. 2 days after the funeral, I found her in the kitchen sipping espresso, talking to someone on speakerphone. 10 days, that's generous. She has no rights to the property. It was always under Henderson Trust. A beat of silence then. "Yes, we'll need the keys back." I didn't step in. I turned and walked back upstairs, every footstep cracking louder than the last. 10 days, that was all I was worth. The email arrived that evening, signed by Isabel and my mother-in-law, Gloria. It was brief, direct, and cold. "As Claire Henderson is not a legal beneficiary of the Henderson estate, we request she vacate the premises within 10 business days to allow asset reassignment." I stared at it without blinking, rereading every line like it would eventually apologize. It didn't. I didn't cry. Not then. Not even when Isabel came to check in later that night, carrying a bottle of Pinot like we were college roommates after a breakup. "Hey," she said, voice dripping with fake softness. "Rough few days, huh?" I didn't answer. "You know, Richard never really explained the whole setup to you, did he? About the crypto accounts, the property structuring. It's complicated stuff. Legacy infrastructure, really." She leaned against the marble island. "It's probably for the best that professionals handle it now." I asked one question. "Why are you smiling?" She blinked. "Excuse me? Your brother is dead, and you've been smiling since the funeral." She looked away. "I'm not smiling." I let her talk, let her prattle on about legal procedures and family obligations. Then I excused myself, walked up to my bedroom, and locked the door. I sat at Richard's desk, the same one where he'd drafted every tech keynote, every investment pitch. His laptop was there, untouched since the night he died. I powered it on. 3 prompts popped up. Enter primary access key. I tried Henderson 2024. Denied. I tried love Claire. Denied. I hesitated. Then typed in my own birth date. Backwards, the way he used to tease me for memorizing everything in reverse. Access granted. A white screen faded into view. A soft chime. The home interface looked almost empty. Just one folder, titled Nova. My fingers hovered over the trackpad, trembling slightly. Nova. It was what he used to call me when we first met. Said I reminded him of a cosmic explosion. Beautiful chaos, he'd laugh. I clicked the folder, and the second prompt appeared. Secondary key required. Biometric only. I touched the screen. Nothing. I tried his watch, my thumbprint, even the ring we both wore. Nothing worked. I leaned back, heart pounding now, not from fear, but from recognition. Richard hadn't locked me out. He'd locked everyone else out. And if I could unlock it, I wouldn't just know what they were hiding. I'd know what he left behind, for me, and me alone. I started with the obvious, Richard's lawyer, the same man who wore navy suits and soft cologne and called me Mrs. Henderson like he meant it. I dialed his number, my thumb trembling just once before I pressed call. Claire, he answered, clipped. I was just about to reach out. Were you? I asked. Silence. I received the notice, I said, from Isabel and Gloria. It says I have 10 days. A breath. Claire, I understand this is difficult, but Richard's will was finalized last year. His estate is held in the Henderson Family Trust. You are not listed as a beneficiary. Because of a clerical error? No. Because legally, he didn't designate you. There's no prenuptial, no joint ownership. I can't represent you in this matter. I didn't yell, I didn't plead, I just said, understood, and ended the call. To the world, I was just the woman who slept in the house. Not a wife, not a partner, just a shadow left behind by a man who'd already vanished. I sat on the floor for a long time, staring at the soft glow screen of Richard's laptop. Nova, the folder read. I was inside the first layer, the second required biometric access, and somewhere, somehow, I knew there was more. He wouldn't have stopped at 2 gates. Richard once told me in the early days that encryption wasn't about secrecy. It was about love. You protect what matters most, he'd said, and you don't leave the key in plain sight. I reached for the necklace. It still hung around my neck, warm against my skin. I tapped the chip to my phone. Nothing happened at first. Then, an unfamiliar ping. A new URL appeared on my browser. A deep web address I didn't recognize, locked behind a custom interface. Black screen, white text, and a single blinking prompt. Input legacy token. I had no idea what that meant. But Richard did, and he made sure I would too. I dug through our shared photo vault. 6 years ago, on our anniversary, he sent me a video, him in his studio grinning at the camera. Someday, you'll be the only one who gets this, he said. Happy future. The video wasn't sentimental. It was a string of movements, finger taps on a digital keyboard, blinking patterns on the studio lights, pauses in exact rhythm. I played it 3 times before I saw it. Morse code. I input the sequence. The screen opened. A folder titled Key Node blinked into existence. I tapped it open. The files weren't photos. They weren't letters. They were blocks of text, hexadecimal code, smart contract references, blockchain addresses, wallet IDs. It was like reading a private language, one Richard and I had created over years of half jokes and puzzle dates. He'd hidden everything here. I ran a trace. The addresses led to one of the top-tier blockchain networks, secure, decentralized, untraceable without private keys. I used the phrase we used to name our first cat, Venus is watching. The screen lit up with data. There it was, every major transaction from the last 3 years, and a contract labeled Testament CLH. I clicked. It was a digital will, Verified, time-stamped, authenticated across the network. Richard had left everything to me. His holdings, the crypto assets, the AI patents, the offshore accounts, everything. The digital signature matched his. The notarization was embedded on-chain. It was legally airtight, but only if you could prove its origin. And that's when I knew I couldn't go to court. Not yet. I needed someone who understood the game, not the law, but the narrative. Someone who could take truth and make it undeniable. So I emailed an alias I'd saved years ago, but never used. JunoFilesCProtonMail.com. She was a journalist, a ghost in the system, known for exposés that took down billionaires, regimes, and 2 crypto CEOs who had vanished right after publication. I wrote only 2 sentences. I have digital proof of estate fraud and suppression of electronic testament. Would you like a story that will rewrite digital inheritance law? Her reply came 6 minutes later. Send me 1 line of smart code. If it's clean, I'll be on a flight by tomorrow. I did. She responded, keep everything off-chain until we meet. Do not use the same devices twice. And tell me something, Claire. If you prove this is yours, what do you want? I stared at the screen. Not the money, not the power, not even the house. I typed back, I want them to know I was never the placeholder. The next morning, Isabel arrived with a locksmith. She didn't knock. She used the backup key. I was in the kitchen drinking coffee. Claire, she said with mock sweetness, we're just here for a quick inspection, standard procedure. I smiled. Of course. The locksmith glanced at me. Which locks are we replacing? None, I said, standing, because nothing here is changing. Isabel scoffed. You don't have a say. I walked to the coffee table and picked up the printed QR code I'd left there. Scan this. She did. Her face changed. The document loaded instantly. A legal statement, time-stamped and hashed on public chain, bearing Richard's digital signature and testament to Claire Henderson as sole heir. Isabel's voice dropped. Where did you get this? I didn't get it, I said. He left it for me. She tried to laugh. That's not valid. Anyone can spoof. Not this, I said. Not when it's backed by 5 separate consensus nodes and embedded proof of authority. Her hands shook. What are you going to do? She whispered. I looked her in the eye. Tell the truth. The first thing I did was verify. Facts first. Always. I contacted a cryptographic auditor, someone from Richard's old team, a quiet man named Arjun, who now lived in Bali and audited smart contracts for a living. We spoke through encrypted video. I showed him the testament, the hash, the metadata. This is clean, he said after 2 days. Richard signed this, no spoofing. The timestamps check out, the key pairs are real. If you present this properly, no court will deny it. I thanked him, sent his fee, and closed the laptop. The data was clean. The war was not. The moment Isabel received the verification notice, she filed a formal complaint with the Digital Property Authority. In it, she claimed I had created a fraudulent blockchain asset using Richard's compromised credentials. She painted me as a schemer, a woman who used sex and algorithms to manipulate a dying man. She's not even a Henderson, the complaint read. She was never part of the trust. She seduced him, and now she's stealing from us. Mere hours later, I saw Gloria, my late mother-in-law, appear on a live-streamed interview. Gray hair perfect, pearls gleaming. She cried on cue. Richard was a genius, she said, but he was trusting. Too trusting. Claire. She understood his weaknesses. She exploited his condition, his grief when his father died. We believe she used some kind of artificial intelligence to mimic his writing. She always did work in communications, and now she's rewriting his legacy. It spread fast. Algorithms loved irony, and nothing was more deliciously ironic than a widow accused of robbing her husband through the very tools he created. The media called it the digital widow heist. I didn't respond. Instead, I filed a petition to the Blockchain Compliance Court, a specialized tribunal that reviewed cases involving crypto assets and smart contract disputes. I uploaded the full code, the notarized metadata, Arjun's audit, and 3 supporting affidavits. I clicked Submit. A moment passed. Then the system returned a red alert. Disputed ownership. Do not proceed until conflict resolved. Someone had challenged the chain. A backdoor conflict flag had been inserted. Someone had slipped a secondary claim into the contract address. My access was real, but now it was contested. I paced the house for hours, silence pressing in like fog. Somewhere, someone had anticipated I'd make a move, and they'd planted a trap before I could spring mine. 2 days later, I received an encrypted message from an address I didn't recognize. Just 6 words. We can solve this for $8 million. Attached was a key. The identifier matched the wallet holding Richard's most valuable assets, an AI stock fund worth more than his entire crypto portfolio combined. Whoever controlled the key could transfer the funds without triggering any fraud flags. I stared at the message. Someone had already moved part of the holdings offshore. Not a lot, just enough to test the pipeline. I traced the route through 3 VPNs and found the trail cold at a bank in Cyprus. It wasn't Isabel. It wasn't Gloria. Whoever this was had access not just to Richard's infrastructure, but to knowledge he hadn't shared with anyone but me. Unless he had. I changed every password. I reset every login. I stored the backup drive in a safety deposit box under a false name. I left nothing traceable in the house. That night, I locked every door. At 2:14 a.m., the power flickered. I grabbed the emergency flashlight and moved through the hallway barefoot, pulse racing, breath shallow. The server closet was open. My hard drive was gone. The second laptop, burner only, encrypted, lay shattered on the floor. But they hadn't touched the small safe embedded under the stairs, because they didn't know it existed. I waited until morning. Then I went to a cafe in Chinatown, used a public terminal, and sent 1 email, addressed to an account I wasn't sure still existed. Richard, if you're watching this, now's the time. I didn't expect a reply, but deep down, part of me wondered, because there was something no one else knew, something I'd found in the metadata of the testament. Hidden in the signature was a string of numbers, a timestamp, and the timestamp wasn't from the day he died. It was 4 days later. The story had to be told, not to a courtroom, not to a judge, but to the public. Not because I needed sympathy, because I needed verification. Once you put truth on chain, no one can erase it, not even the ones who wish they could burn the whole system down. I compiled everything. The smart contracts, the biometric proofs, the unaltered audit trail, the timestamps, especially the one that said Richard's final testament was signed 4 days after his recorded time of death. I layered it with metadata, hashed it with Arjun's help, and pushed it live on a decentralized news network called Truth. The headline wasn't dramatic, just 5 words. I was never the placeholder. It exploded in minutes. Journalists scrambled. Blockchain analysts tore through the code. Legal experts posted videos dissecting the testament structure and the metadata discrepancies. Reddit threads reached 500,000 upvotes in 24 hours. On one podcast, a crypto lawyer said, "This changes the way we define consent in estate protocols." Another said, "Claire Henderson just rewrote digital inheritance law." What surprised me wasn't the attention. It was the people who believed me. Women from Zurich, Seoul, Nairobi, Bogota, widows, coders, startup founders began messaging, commenting, reposting. Not all were sympathetic. Some accused me of forging grief into weaponry, but most just understood. 3 days after Truth published, the Blockchain Compliance Court issued a ruling. The dispute flag was removed. The smart contract was authenticated as valid, original, and uncorrupted. I was now, undisputably, the legal owner of Richard's entire digital estate. The decision included his AI hedge fund, 5 crypto wallets, 4 patents under his former company, and the trust funds that Isabel and Gloria had been siphoning from for years. They lost access instantly. One by one, the dashboards went dark. By the time Isabel realized what had happened, her login credentials returned a cold system message. User does not exist. She tried to call. I didn't pick up. Then came Gloria. She called 3 times. I watched the screen ring. No name, just blocked ID. I watched the call fade unanswered. She emailed, "We're family. Please call me." I deleted it. For the first time since Richard died, the silence in the house felt like mine. Not his, not theirs, mine. And then it began. Not destruction, revelation. I traced the money. I followed the trail from Richard's AI company, backed jointly by us, though my name never made it onto the branding, to a series of shadow transactions. These weren't hidden by accident. Richard was smart, but someone had used his infrastructure to funnel money into a set of advisory fees and development contracts that led directly to Isabel. She'd been drawing thousands monthly for over a year. One advisor was her boyfriend. Another was a shell account registered to her college roommate. The documents were clear. She wasn't just opportunistic after his death. She'd been mining the empire while he was alive. And Gloria? She'd received quarterly consulting fees from a Cayman-registered account tied to Richard's legacy company. Nothing illegal on paper, but unethical? Undeniably. Richard hadn't protected me because he loved me more than them. He protected me because he knew I was the only one not playing a long game. It hurt in a way I didn't expect, but clarity always does. I closed every open account. I locked every wallet and initiated a full asset restructure. Then I built something new, a multi-signature trust fund, immutable, transparent, public-facing. The money would go to 2 things only: scholarships for underrepresented students in artificial intelligence and grants for digital literacy in low-income schools. No names attached, no family legacies, just code and purpose. When Isabel realized she couldn't access anything, not even her own shared investment accounts, she went nuclear. She released private messages, spun rumors on Twitter, gave an interview with a scandal blog claiming I had emotionally manipulated a genius. It didn't work, because the internet had already seen the code. And once truth is immutable, everything else looks like noise. One morning, Gloria appeared on national television. She wore black again, but not out of mourning. Her voice cracked with just enough fragility to sound rehearsed. "She's punishing us," she said, tears welling. "We were family. We trusted her. And she turned Richard's death into a public humiliation." The interviewer leaned in. "But the records..." "She edited them. She's clever, you know. Always was. That's how women win now. They cry data." I watched with the volume off. Her mouth moved, but I didn't need to hear it. I'd already heard it all before. Through smiles, through side glances, through years of being politely excluded from legacy meetings. They were never afraid of me being wrong. They were terrified of me being right. After the broadcast, I received an invitation. TEDx. They wanted me to speak on digital power and ethical inheritance. I stared at the email. Part of me wanted to accept, to stand on that red circle and tell the world exactly what it felt like to burn alive and build yourself again from ash and code. But instead, I replied with one sentence. "I'm not a symbol, I'm a warning." Then I clicked archive. The world would keep spinning. The money would find its way to students I'd never meet. And I would stay here. In this house I once thought was his, then thought was mine. Now I know better. It never belonged to either of us. It was always a crucible. And I survived it. People called me the Phoenix, the digital widow who rose from ashes, wrapped in code and vindication. Every major tech blog wrote about the Claire Protocol. Some even started using it as shorthand for smart estate security. I was invited to panels, think tanks, even offered a consulting position with one of the largest blockchain firms in Europe. They called it justice. But inside, I felt nothing. I barely slept. When I did, I saw Richard. Sometimes as he was, sometimes as he looked in the morgue, and sometimes as someone entirely unfamiliar. Eyes blank, mouth moving without sound. I'd wake gasping, hands clutching the sheets like they might keep me grounded in a world that no longer had gravity. Some nights I heard footsteps that weren't there, the hum of servers long disconnected, doors creaking open behind me always too slowly. I knew it was my mind rewiring itself in the aftermath. Trauma behaves like malware. It embeds, mutates, waits. Worse than the hallucinations was the doubt. What if Richard had planned none of this? What if the D-Chook, the code, the files, weren't his legacy, but just pieces I forced together to make meaning from grief? I sat on the floor of the studio where he once worked, watching a single line of his handwriting glow across a touchscreen. You protect what matters most. I'd repeated that phrase like a mantra, but now I couldn't help but ask, what if he wasn't protecting me? What if I was just the final lock? The email came at 2:37 a.m. I was half asleep on the couch, headphones still playing a lecture on cryptographic ethics. The subject line was blank. The sender address was one I hadn't seen in over a year, an old alias of Richard's from before we married. The body of the email held only one sentence: "Don't open the file," and below it an attachment. No title, just a string of numbers, his birthday in reverse. I stared at it for a long time. Everything rational in me said delete it. But there are some locks curiosity opens, even when wisdom says walk away. I clicked. The file was audio, garbled at first. Then his voice, clear and unmistakable. If you're hearing this, it means you found what I left, and it means I failed to stop them. Silence. A breath. I knew they were watching. Isabel, Gloria. Not just them. Investors, boards, people who saw too much value in what I built. So I split the data, gave you the version they couldn't trace. But I couldn't encrypt intent. I couldn't protect the part they wanted most, me. My chest tightened. I had to make it look like I chose you, make it seem like I entrusted you. That was the only way to buy you time, to make sure they underestimated you. But you weren't supposed to carry this to the end. That was never the plan. He paused. The audio cracked. If you're listening now, Claire, it means the chaos worked. They burned each other, but it also means I miscalculated the cost. Another silence, then softer, like he was talking to himself. You weren't supposed to become the symbol. You were supposed to walk away. I let the audio run out. Then I played it again. Then again. By the third time, my hands had gone cold. Everything I had fought for, everything I had built from the ashes, none of it was mine. It was a diversion, a smokescreen designed to collapse a system he couldn't dismantle from within. I was the variable he used to trigger the failure cascade. The public loved a martyr. He knew that. He knew I could carry grief better than he ever could, and he'd use that. He didn't leave me the keys. He left me the mess, the code, the story, the outrage. All of it was theater, and I'd played my part perfectly. I went back to the server closet one last time. Every wallet, every login, every trace of Richard's legacy was still there, humming beneath the interface like ghost signals. I could have kept it going, maintained the trust, protected the scholarships, honored the illusion, but I couldn't do it anymore. Not when I finally understood the truth. He hadn't saved me. He'd sacrificed me. I input the master wipe command, one string of irreversible code, a final transaction. The screen flashed, then dimmed. No more dashboards, no more ownership, no more keys, just silence. I packed a small bag, left the house unlocked, walked down the hill until the city swallowed the edges of the world. No press release, no farewell, Only one note left on the empty desk. There's no glory in being a symbol, only scars. The air in Reykjavik felt like glass, clear, brittle, honest. Claire stood at the edge of the conference hall's terrace, wrapped in a charcoal wool coat, breath visible in soft bursts. It had been a year, a quiet one. No press, no lectures, no traces, just new names, new passports, and the slow, painful process of becoming someone no one was looking for. The conference was small, almost humble. Ethics in AI governance, held inside a restructured church. The altar was now a projector screen. The pews, rows of modular white chairs. Claire had been invited under the name Dr. Elena Voss, recommended by someone who once studied under her, back when she still used her real name. She didn't correct them. The room held less than 50 people. Students, coders, ethicists, curious faces who hadn't lived through her story. Maybe a few who had, unknowingly, read it once in a news thread or seen a headline now buried under fresher tragedies. But here, she was no longer the widow, the hacker, the symbol. She was just the guest speaker in black boots and a linen notebook, talking about moral consequence in systems that learn without conscience. She spoke plainly. No slides, no buzzwords. When a machine learns injustice, she said, it replicates it with precision. But when a human survives it, the replication becomes a choice. That's the difference. They listened, not because she demanded it, but because silence made sense around her. Her presence had become quieter over the year, more still. But inside, she knew she was not healed, only evolved. Afterward, during the coffee break, a girl approached, maybe 16, sharp eyes, hair in 2 tight braids. She held a worn tablet and a disposable cup of licorice tea. "I liked your point," she said, "about machines copying our worst habits." Claire smiled. "Thanks. But do you believe justice is real, or just the story we tell when power wins?" It was too direct, too pure. Claire didn't answer right away. The girl didn't press, just sipped her tea, waiting. Claire finally said, "Justice isn't real, not in any permanent way. But choosing what's right, knowing it might not matter, that's what separates us from the code." The girl nodded. Cool answer. Then she turned and left, leaving Claire alone with her own echo. Later that evening, Claire stood by the frost-rimmed window of the guest house, staring at the snow as it blurred the mountains into clouds. Her breath fogged the glass. She pressed her fingertips to the pane, drawing a circle she didn't finish. She thought of Richard, not as a ghost, but as a variable, one she'd spent too long solving. In the end, he wasn't the riddle. She was. The story hadn't been about inheritance or betrayal or even revenge. It was about release. She turned back to the desk, where her tablet hummed silently. She opened the terminal, typed in the seed phrase she hadn't used in months, her last digital vestige of the Claire the world once thought it knew. From that string of code, she built something new, a repository, open source, anonymous, immutable. She called it the Phoenix Protocol. It wasn't flashy, no graphics, no manifesto, just a set of decentralized scripts that taught users how to embed ethical gates into learning systems, how to build moral delay loops, how to design choice points in AI with interpretive ambiguity so that machines, like people, would have to pause before replicating harm. At the end of the codebase, she left a single comment: "Don't follow me. Evolve beyond me." She uploaded the file onto the interplanetary file system. Impossible to delete, impossible to trace. A seed in the dirt of digital space. Then she logged off. In the morning, she took her bag, checked out of the guest house, and left a cash tip with a thank you note written in Icelandic. No signature. By the time her plane crossed the Atlantic, the Phoenix Protocol had been forked twice. By the end of the week, it had been cloned 12 times, cited in one academic paper, and linked in a Discord channel called Code for Change. Claire didn't track it, but someone else did. In a small apartment in Pune, India, a 15-year-old girl named Anaya scrolled through a thread on AI resistance models. Her mother, a single parent and freelance translator, was asleep on the couch. Anaya had saved the thread to read later, but something about the anonymous file caught her attention. She opened the repo, read every line, paused at the final comment, and smiled. She copied the code, but she didn't use it. She added to it. She rewrote a section, improved the logic gate efficiency, embedded a fail-safe trigger for misuse detection. Then she renamed the new fork, Phoenix. Claire would never know her name, would never see the modified protocol. But legacy doesn't require ownership. It requires ignition. And somewhere in a quiet, snow-covered village, a woman once named Claire exhaled, unaware that her final act had become someone else's first.